I need to leave it out. Hello, lovely listeners. Thank you for joining us for another episode of Confessions in the Powder Room. Today's topic is on Damn, You're on My Last Nerve, where we're going to discuss anxiety with women over 40, an all too relatable topic.
This topic is so relatable for me personally in my journey with anxiety, my journey with different levels of anxiety. EG Glam, I've suffered from anxiety since my 20s. Didn't know it was anxiety. I always just thought people were getting on my nerves, and I always thought it was the people and not me. I probably lost a couple of relationships on my anxiety, not knowing that was the issue. And so
Wow.
when I hit 40, I noticed that my anxiety would get worse. And starting with sleep deprivation, having sleep issues, having thoughts about the future and how things were going to go for me and my family for the future. And those are all signs of anxiety.
Yeah, so, that's so very interesting, CJ Posh, that you are adding your personal story. That's a very serious topic there, but just wanted to, dig a little bit more into that. Did you know that according to the American Academy of Anxiety and Depression Association, anxiety disorders are the most common mental health disorder in the United States? Did you
That
know that?
is, yeah, that is such a crazy number. And when I think back to women in my family who as little kids growing up, my auntie or my grandmother, they would act in certain ways, and the one mantra that they would always say is, "Damn, you're on my last nerve." And so I wonder if that's just if that was anxiety that was going on, with my female family members.
Yeah, that's something to think about. I remember growing up in a household always hearing, "Damn, you're on my last nerve." So that for me meant go sit down somewhere,
Go
leave
sit
me.
down and get out my face, get out my view.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely.
So we have to, give us a very good, definition and to talk about the different types of anxiety. We are going to play a very brief clip from a psych from Sore Minds, where he talks about anxiety and the different types of anxiety. So we'll just spend a moment or so listening to this clip. And then we'll talk more about how it impacts women over 40.
Okay, I'm
Sometimes it occurs in
interested.
different situations, and even in the same situation, sometimes it can be different symptoms. Right, I'll give you a couple of examples. Probably the most common anxiety disorder is generalized anxiety disorder. So this is characterized by excessive, uncontrollable, and even irrational worrying. And that's over everyday matters like health, finances, like a fear of death, fear of your family members being safe, fear that your piles are flaring up, and workplace difficulties. By contrast, another type of anxiety disorder that I'm sure you've heard about is obsessive compulsive disorder, and that's different. So that's more about these intrusive thoughts, which are known as obsessions, and they're persistent, unwanted thoughts, and they can take the form of mental images. And there's urges that are generated, which are the compulsions, that you have to do something physically to get rid of it. So the obsessions are the feelings of anxiety. Often it's related to disgust. So often obsessions are about contamination, feeling that things are dirty, or obsessions with symmetry in OCD. And the compulsions are the need to perform certain acts or routines to get rid of the obsession. But these acts often cause distress, or they're so repetitive or so time consuming that they actually impair general function.
So again, that was a psych for sore minds, and he's a psychiatrist, and his material on YouTube is very good. And so when I first heard this video, I was like, Dang, I think I have all of those.
We can all relate at least to some form of what he was speaking of, the perfectionism, the difficulty concentrating, the panic attacks, sleep issues. Any constant worry. I wanted to share a brief personal story. The other day, my little sister and I were speaking, and my sister, she's always speaking on, "Hey, if I'm not working, I'm in the bed till 12 p.m. daily." And I said, "That's something that I've always saw in you, but I still love you regardless as to whether you want to stay in bed till 12 on your off day." So I said to her, "Hey, what is it that you feel as though is a quirk that I have?" And she says, "Something mom would say to us even when you were a kid, E.G. Glam, sit down somewhere. Go somewhere and sit down." And so what that meant and what my mom was basically pushing there was that, I was always, cleaning up. I was obsessing with a clean kitchen. I was obsessing with a clean bathroom. I could never just sit down. And, that is a form of anxiety. So, you know, those those examples right there, that's a struggle that I would have. And sometimes people with anxiety may withdraw from friends and family, avoid certain places, or feel unable to go to work. They may also avoid new activities or socializing in large groups. While I don't see that in myself at times, what I do see in myself is that I do struggle with, hey, did I clean the kitchen? Did I clean the bathroom? Is everything in order before I go to bed? So I will not go to sleep until I make sure that's done.
Yeah, and I really, you and I, we've had many stories of, hanging out at night, and I do recall. I know that you like your kitchen clean at night, regardless of what you have going on, regardless of the time. Your kitchen's going to be spotless the next morning. So I can definitely vouch for that. And it's so interesting, So that's just anxiety in general. But anxiety once women, reach a certain age, um, and specifically for Black women, it actually becomes a little bit, worse. So just in general, women experience depression twice the rates of men. And the unique challenge that comes with Black women is we're not receiving the type of care that our white counterparts necessarily receive. As a matter of fact, half of Black women are only will receive the seek care. And so those numbers definitely need to be explored. And then the second unique challenge as Black women is we just don't have representation in that field. Only the 2% of us are practicing psychiatrists, and then 4% of us are psychologists providing care. So then it's a double fold issue. We don't go and seek care, and then we don't have people that look like us that help us out. And I know personally
Absolutely.
for me, when I go seek out mental health, I really like to be with someone who looks like me and understands, my journey as a Black woman.
Absolutely, and additionally, the prevalence of social anxiety in professional and academic settings is, heightened by the pressure being the only or first Black
Yes.
woman in those environments. So, they feel to be, we always feel the need to be twice as good, to be recognized half as much, which can be exacerbated by anxiety. So, just imagine. Um, an individual that looks like us is facing us, and we're discussing our anxiety issues with them. What are the chances of that? It's very slim to none. And so there's a heightened anxiety around that because we want someone that can relate to us, and by that, by relating to us, they look like us.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's one thing to have someone empathetic to what we have to go through, but I like someone who is sympathetic because they understand that journey. They understand the journey of raising, black boys and black girls in this world, and they understand, the stresses that come with that. And I know for me personally, um, I when I turned 40, I definitely noticed my anxiety just started going really crazy. And the thing that would trigger my anxiety is when certain people would call me, or I would get certain text messages, or I would get different pings from the thousands of messaging systems that we have out there. I noticed that, things would trigger me, or even like the CNN notifications that you get set up on your mobile device or on your computer. I just noticed that when I would see that CNN notification pop up, I
Yeah.
would, it's nothing good that ever pops up. And I noticed that my anxiety would just start going, overtime. And so for me, for my mental health and then to help with my anxiety levels, I had to start cutting out the different notifications that would pop up on my cell phone, just to kind of keep things, copacetic for myself
Absolutely.
from a mental health perspective.
Yeah, so that you can actually sleep at night. Funny you mentioned the CNN notifications. I actually stopped receiving those years ago because of my need to want to, pick up the phone and find out what's going on in the world. Although I had no control over, changing the outcome of what it might be. It could be good or bad. So it wasn't necessarily anything that I was, looking for in a negative notion. But of course, just having that anxiety that's built around that, hey, what's going on now? Oh, and you really can't do anything about it. But the anxiety is still there. So I cut mine I cut those off years ago. But, I wanted to, go over some stats here that that as a common mental disorder, the prevalence rate of anxiety is 1.9% to 5.1% in the middle age of the general population. So, in the 45 to 55-year-old population proportion of females, it's twice that of male patients. So we're outpacing, the male population. I think a lot of that just has to deal with, we take on more typically than a
Yes.
male. Males, they work, their form of employment and sustaining and taking care of a household are some of the things that males think about and focus on, wherein females, they focus on, household, children, and their own employment, and making sure that they're uh, uh, being a good wife to their husband. So it's, there's so much more that we focus on as women. And I feel like that is anxiety, that creates anxiety around itself. Yeah,
Yeah, absolutely. I think with, white men, they're at the top of the food chain, so they don't even have an inclination of some of the things that, black people, have to go through on a day-to-day basis. And I think that with black women, it's the issues that we have. You mentioned, being the only person at a corporate setting, so we have that dynamic.
mhm,
Family. A lot of us, are the leaders in our families, and so we're managing, different dynamics, racism, discrimination, and then trauma. And so I think as Black women, and I feel like this impacts us than any other of our counterparts. We
absolutely.
have this pressure to succeed, we have this pressure to not to let our community down, to let our families down. Like if you go to any given black church on any given Sunday, I'm sorry, the majority of the people attending a church, the majority of the volunteers in the church, women.
Yeah,
So
looking
all
to
of
be
that is an
best.
extra layer of pressure on us.
Absolutely. You just we feel as though, hey, I just want to be the best. It goes back to what I was saying uh, to my last one of my last statements, where not only do we show up, but we feel as though we have to work twice as hard, more than our counterparts because that's where we feel like, "Hey, I'm going to be noticed, so I really have to work twice as hard, 3 times as hard sometimes." So, yeah, it's a lot of pressure on us and that within itself, creates anxiety there. So, wanted to get into a little bit more into the journey of you know, a celebrity that, was speaking on their depression and anxiety. So, do you happen to have that clip? I would love
Yeah,
to
I
hear that
do.
clip on
Yeah,
Taraji.
absolutely.
Yeah,
This
so
is Tarash Hanson, and she's been very vocal about what she has gone through as far as depression and anxiety. So we'll spend a couple minutes listening to her perspective. In our
okay.
community, the African American community, is that we can talk about a thyroid, we can talk about cancer, breast cancer, AIDS, even, but we won't deal with the mental, and that's an issue. I struggle with depression and anxiety. I would have to say I realized it about 2 years ago. I noticed the mood swings. Like, one day I'd be up and the next day I'd be down, feeling like I don't want to go out in public, almost agoraphobic, like, ugh, too much to deal with, feeling really awkward in my skin, feeling out of sorts, and just down, like Debbie Downer, like a dark cloud. And then there would be days where my brain wouldn't stop racing, I would think of the most worst scenarios in the world, which would heighten my anxiety. And, people were like, you just need to meditate and yoga and things like that. And I would do that, but my brain would still race. For me, there was no shame when I started to recognize it. It was like that I had to get some help because I'm the life of the party. And when I go dark, I go dark. I don't want to leave the house. And my friends started to notice me pulling back. And my father, who also had his issues with mental health, was really open about it, about his manic depression. But as I think back, no one else really talked about it. It was hush hush. So, again, the she has been very vocal about Black women and depression and anxiety and talking about her personal journey. And we'll put that link in the description. But I think that's another interesting point that she brings up is anxiety. I feel like in the open conversation about depression and anxiety really has just started with, I would say, Generation X, where we are a little bit more open with talking about it. And definitely the generations after us, they're all over
Right,
it.
right. They are all over it. So, I wanted to mention something that she pointed out. She pointed out that she was told, "Hey, go practice yoga, you know, practice these mediation type techniques." That works for some individuals, and some individuals it does not work. So I felt like, for her, she was being compartmentalized and just placed in a general box. Hey, if you're suffering from this, then this is your automatic go-to. uh,
Yeah.
there's that box of generalization, and individuals suffer from different types of depression and anxiety. And unfortunately, maybe there's that may be something to be explored, that we just don't have the therapists out there that can, not compartmentalize anyone who's suffering from anxiety or depression, and just look at that individual case, because there's different traumas and PTSDs that are associated with that and depression and anxiety. So I think it should be, hey, let's not compartmentalize you. Let's treat your certain case and treat you as an individual. And I don't believe that there's enough of that. So, just my personal opinion.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you. And I just, when I think about my journey over the years with different therapists, some of the therapists that I've worked with had a more boilerplate template. And so that's why it's so critical to really find the right therapist to meet your needs and, your style and what's effective for you. So totally agree with you. On a good note, I just think back, 20 years ago, there were very limited resources on depression and anxiety. But now today, there are a lot of resources online where we as Black women can access more about anxiety and more about depression and more about the different resources available. So we'll put those in the link as a link as well. But the two resources I wanted to call out, blackmentalwellness.com and blackgirlsmile.org. Definitely for those who think they may need more help or or more information, absolutely check out those resources.
That is really nice. Thank you, CJ Posh. One thing I'd like to say, some, final words of encouragement and support. Dear sister, remember, your feelings are valid and you're not alone. Anxiety does not define your strength or your worth. It's okay to seek help and prioritize your mental health. You deserve peace, joy, and support on your journey. So lean into your community, embrace self care, and know that overcoming anxiety is a sign of your incredible resilience. You are powerful, beautiful, and capable of thriving well beyond this moment.
Beautiful words.
Yeah,
Thank you very
thank
much.
you are so very welcome. So, just wanted to talk about our next episode. So, I'm excited. Are you excited, CJ
I
Pod?
am too. I'm very excited about our next episode.
Okay, so our next episode of our Confessions in the Powder Room, we are going to be discussing an all too familiar topic. And that topic is related to how do we navigate through career change? Let's think about that. So, how are you navigating through your career change? Let's say you've been in a career for 15, 20 years and you decided that you have to seek a new career, whether that's an involuntary change or a voluntary change. How do you navigate through a career change over 40? We're going to be discussing that next week. I'm excited.
That's a very good one and so relevant, especially in today's age where you have to be able to pivot in your career.
Yeah. So, yeah, we're going to talk about, resources that are out there when you're when you're looking at navigating a new career change. We're going to discuss, how to help yourself and how to keep yourself relevant. So, I'm excited. I'm excited.
I'm excited too.
Okay. All right, so we're going to close out here. We want to thank you, lovelies, for attending another episode of Confessions in the Powder Room. We look forward to seeing you next week. Don't forget, we have a new episode that drops each Tuesday. We look forward to seeing you soon.
See you soon, lovelies.
See you soon, lovelies. Thank you. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.